I'd like to welcome everybody to Season 3 of Check Your Shelf. We've got the Orwellian double feature. We're going to start it off with Animal Farm and then follow it up with 1984, a back-to-back set of certified heaters. In this season, we're going to discuss how absolute power can completely and totally destroy a man. We're going to discuss how the bourgeois class always wants to keep down the working class. And we're going to discuss why the government, the state, the man does not care about you. This book was banned in the United States for being pro-communism. This book was banned in the United Arab Emirates in 2012 for being un-Islamic. Printers in the UK were discouraged from printing it in order to not emblazon the USSR. But it's not banned here. Not on Check Your Shelf. Because that's what we do. We read what they don't want us to read. And it's better that way. So I'm gonna have to ask you to go check your shelf. Oh boy, looks like we back at it. Back at it like a crack addict. Welcome to Check Your Shelf, baby. Season 3. You already know what the deal is. We read an Animal Farm right now, and things are getting hot and heavy on the Animal Farm. Last episode, we met a liaison for Animal Farm, like a messenger or like a sort of solicitor to the outside world. His name was Mr. Whiner. So he's not to be trusted so far. This is like we talked about, this is the sort of diluting of the brand, as it were. When you have an outside influence or a third party speaking on your behalf, things get mistranslated a lot. We also saw that the pigs are either changing the animalism commandments or are gaslighting the other animals about them, because the other animals can't really read. The pigs are the only animals that can really read on the farm. A couple animals can kind of read and, you know, for the most part, structure sentences and words and stuff, but they can't really read or write. So really easy to be taken advantage of if you don't have, you know, all the information at your fingertips that you need. So make sure you guys stay informed and don't allow others to gaslight you about things you know to be true. We saw that the pigs are sleeping in human beds, and they're sleeping in for an hour later than the others, so they're starting to get a little bit of their privilege shown to us. We also saw the windmill that they were building after Snowball had gotten excised from the community. They started building the windmill with plans that had been changed, and it was attacked and it fell down. So somebody had destroyed it. Hi, Charlie. You know I gotta pick you up every time I'm recording and you say hey to me. No, don't run. Everyone loves you so much. Say hi to Charlie. If you want to see my pretty cat, subscribe on my YouTube. Okay, bye-bye. Sorry, God. You came to me. And then again, we were talking about Snowball, but he wound up being the scapegoat and the boogeyman that Napoleon is using to scare the people. And you know, he was the bad guy. This is what he was trying to, you know, hurt us all along for the good of Animal Farm. We're glad he's gone. Fuck that guy. He also made he went around and was like, everybody has to admit their crimes that they've committed with Snowball. We need to know if you're a fucking. He basically telling people to, you know, rat on themselves. So, but the reasons for the ribbities and all the typos and all that good. And if you want to discuss anything too, just hop in the Discord. You can find that on my link tree, or you can just type it into your browser. The link's right there at the bottom left of your screen. But yeah, here we are, right before chapter 8. Who's this speaking? Squealer. Fucking Squealer. So it looks like Beasts of England was a song about the rebellion, but the rebellion's done. So in Beasts of England, we expressed our longing for a better society in days to come, but that society has now been established. Clearly, this song no longer has a purpose. So frightened as they were, some of the animals might possibly have protested, but at this moment, the sheep set up the usual bleating of 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, which went on for several minutes and put an end to the discussion. So Beasts of England was heard no more. In its place, Minimus, the poet, had composed another song which began, Animal Farm, never through me. Wait, never through me shalt thou come to harm. That's a terrible song, dude. That's a terrible song. You're a poet. You should write poems. Don't write songs. Animal Farm, never through me shalt thou come to harm. And this was sung every Sunday morning after the hoisting of the flag, but somehow neither the words nor the tune ever seemed to the animals to come up to be savannah. Oh, okay. I hate the way that it trips me up every time. I wonder if it's, I think this dude's British. I wonder if it's because that's just how British dudes write. The words nor the tune ever seemed to the animals to come up to beasts of England. There should at least be commas there, right? I don't know, whatever. Chapter 8. A few days later, when the terror caused by the executions had died down, some of the animals remembered, or thought they remembered, that the 6th commandment decreed, "No animal shall kill any other animal." And though no one cared to mention it in the hearing of the pigs or the dogs, it was felt that the killings which had taken place did not square with it. Clover asked Benjamin to read her the 6th commandment, and when Benjamin, as usual, said that he refused to meddle in such matters, he fetched Muriel. Muriel read the commandment for her. It ran, "No animal shall kill any other animal without cause." Somehow or other, the last 2 words had slipped out of the animal's memory, but they saw now that the commandment had not been violated. See, somehow or other, the last 2 words slipped out. See, we got that either gaslighting, and they're changing the. I mean, it seems like both are happening. It seems like they're changing the commandments and messing with the minds of the other animals. But they saw now that the commandment had not been violated, for clearly there was good reason for killing the traitors who had leagued themselves with Snowball. Throughout the year, the animals worked even harder than they had been working in the previous year to rebuild the windmill, with walls twice as thick as before, and to finish it by the appointed date. Together with the regular work of the farm, it was a tremendous labor. There were times when it seemed to the animals that they had worked longer hours and fed no better than they had done on in Jones's day. On Sunday mornings, Squealer, holding down a long strip of paper with his trotter, would read out to them lists of figures proving that the production of every class of foodstuff had increased by 200%, 300%, or 500%, as the case might be. The animals saw no reason to disbelieve him, especially as they could no longer remember very clearly what conditions had been like before the rebellion. All the same, there were days when they felt that they would sooner have had less figures and more food. I like that. All the same, there were days when they felt like they would sooner have had less figures and more food. They don't give a fuck if the numbers are saying we got more food. We want the food, motherfucker. All orders were now issued through Squealer or one of the other pigs. Napoleon himself was not seen in public as often as once in a fortnight. Scaredy cat. And when he did appear, he was attended not only by his retinue of dogs, but by a black cockerel who marched in front of him and acted as kind of a trumpeter, letting out a loud cock-a-doodle-doo before Napoleon spoke. Even in the farmhouse, it was said, Napoleon inhabited separate apartments from the others. He took his meals alone, with 2 dogs to wait upon him, and always ate from the Crown Derby dinner service, which had been in the glass cupboard in the drawing room. It was also announced that the gun would be fired every year on Napoleon's birthday, as well as on the other 2 anniversaries. Napoleon was now never spoken of simply as Napoleon. He was always referred to in formal style as our leader, Comrade Napoleon. And this, pigs liked to invent for him such titles as Father of all animals, Terror of mankind, Protector of the sheepfold, Duckling's friend, and the like. In his speeches, Squealer would talk with tears rolling down his cheeks of Napoleon's wisdom, the goodness of his heart, and the deep love he bore to all animals everywhere. Bore. Talking about pigs. Bore. Pun. Excuse me. The deep love he bore to animals everywhere, even and especially the unhappy animals who still lived in ignorance and slavery on other farms. Come on, Ribbity, yo, Ribbity. It had become usual to give Napoleon credit for every successful achievement and every stroke of good fortune. You would often hear one hen remark to another, "Under the guidance of our leader, Comrade Napoleon, I have laid 5 eggs in 6 days." Or 2 cows, enjoying a drink at the pool, would exclaim, "Thanks to the leadership of Comrade Napoleon, how excellent this water tastes." The general feeling on the farm was well expressed in a poem entitled Comrade Napoleon, which was composed by Minimus and which ran as follows. I'm glad they're just putting like these little fictional poems and fictional songs written by animals in this book, you know? Really gives it a sense of culture. Gotta love it. Yeah, where we at? Friend of fatherless, fountain of happiness, lord of the swill bucket, oh how my soul is on fire when I gaze at thy calm and commanding eye, like the sun in the sky, Comrade Napoleon. Thou art the giver of all that thy creatures love, full belly twice a day, clean straw to roll upon. Every beast, great or small, sleeps at peace in his stall. Thou watchest over all, Comrade Napoleon. I'm trying to make it rhyme with upon. Had I a sucking pig, ere he had grown as big, even as a pint bottle or as a rolling pin, he should have learned to be faithful and true to thee. Yes, his first squeak should be Comrade Napoleon. Napoleon approved of this poem and caused it to be inscribed on the wall of the big barn at the opposite end from the 7 commandments. It was surmounted by a portrait of Napoleon, in profile, executed by Squealer in white paint. Meanwhile, through the agency of Windmill, Napoleon was engaged in complicated negotiations with Frederick and Pilkington. The pile of timber was still unsold. Of the two, Frederick was the more anxious to get hold of it, but he would not offer a reasonable price. At the same time, there were renewed rumors that Frederick and his men were plotting to attack Animal Farm and to destroy the windmill, the building of which had aroused furious jealousy in him. Snowball was known to be still skulking on Pinchfield Farm. In the middle of the summer, the animals were alarmed to hear that 3 hens had come forward and confessed that, inspired by Snowball, they had entered in a plot to murder Napoleon. They were executed immediately, and fresh precautions for Napoleon's safety were taken. 4 dogs guarded his bed at night. Why would they tell on themselves though, right? Oh, so maybe they didn't, right? Okay, so here's another little government conspiracy for you, right? So, in the middle of the summer, the animals were alarmed to hear that 3 hens had come forward and confessed. So they heard that 3 hens came forward and confessed it, right? So why are we so sure that Napoleon just didn't kill the chickens for wanting to start another rebellion or something and then used Snowball as, you know what I'm saying? So now he's saying, well, Snowball was trying to kill me. I mean, these hens said it. I heard him say it. So gotta listen to me, right? Crazy. Fresh precautions for Napoleon's safety were taken. 4 dogs guarded his bed at night, 1 in each corner, and a young pig named Pink Eye was given the task of tasting all his food before he ate it, lest it should be poisoned. At about the same time it was given out that Napoleon had arranged to sell the pile of timber to Mr. Pilkington, he was also going to enter into a regular agreement for the exchange of certain products between Animal Farm and Foxwood. The relations between Napoleon and Pilkington, though they were only conducted through Windmill, sorry, I hate to mispronounce your name, were now almost friendly. The animals distrusted Pilkington as a human being, but greatly preferred him to Frederick. These are the two neighboring farmers. I don't know if you guys are confused or not, but I was for half a second earlier in the episode, so just making sure everyone's on the same page with me. 72, by the way. You're on the PDF. Probably not in the real book. But they greatly preferred him to Frederick, whom they both feared and hated. As the summer wore on and the windmill neared completion, the rumors of an impending treacherous attack grew stronger and stronger. Frederick, it was said, intended to bring against them 20 men, all armed with guns. And he had already bribed the magistrates and the police so that if he could once get hold of the title deeds of Animal Farm, they would ask no questions. Moreover, terrible stories were leaking out from Pinchfield about the cruelties that Frederick practiced upon his animals. He had flogged an old horse to death, he starved his cows, he had killed a dog by throwing it into the furnace, he amused himself in the evenings by making cocks fight with splinters of razor blade tied to their spurs. The animals' blood boiled with rage when they heard of these things being done to their comrades, and sometimes they clamored to be allowed to go out in a body and attack Pinchfield Farm. To be allowed to go out in a body, I wonder what that means. Also, are we just gonna drive by the fact that I said cocks? So weird, man. Just say rooster. Oh, weird. Or am I weird for thinking of a cock? Don't say cock. All right. In a body. They clamored to be allowed to go out in a body and attack Pinchfield Farm. I wonder what that means. In a body. Drive out the humans and set the animals free. But Squealer counseled them to avoid rash actions and trust in Comrade Napoleon's strategy. Nevertheless, feelings against Frederick continued to run high. One Sunday morning, Napoleon appeared in the barn and explained that he had never at any time contemplated selling the pile of timber to Frederick. He considered it beneath his dignity, he said, to have dealings with scoundrels of that description. I should have read. See, this. I paused. I put it I inflected it wrong. Now I got to do it over. This is such a hassle, you guys. Can you believe I have to read this sentence twice now? I'm exhausted. He considered it beneath his dignity, he said, to have dealings with scoundrels of that description. The pigeons who were still sent out to spread tidings of the rebellion were forbidden to set foot anywhere on Foxwood, and were also ordered to drop their former slogan of death to humanity in favor of death to Frederick. We're seeing the loosening of the grip, aren't we? Everything's kind of slipping through the cracks, as it were. It's no longer, what is it? I can't even remember the commandment, but now 4 legs good, 2 legs bad is now taking over the whole commandments. We're just putting a coating, an illusion layer over everything. It's no longer death to humanity. Now it's just this one guy, when humanity is, again, not, we're talking about in the terms of Animal Farm here, but humanity is the man, you know what I'm saying? The proletariat, the fucking ruling class. Death to humanity means, you know, eat the rich or whatever. And now they're just saying death to this one guy. They're losing sight of the goal. In the late summer, yet another of Snowball's machinations was laid bare. The wheat crop was full of weeds, and it was discovered that on one of his nocturnal visits, Snowball had mixed weed seeds with the seed corn. Weed seeds, bruh. Yeah. A gander, who had been privy to the plot, had confessed his guilt to Squealer and immediately committed suicide by swallowing deadly nightshade berries. The animals now also learned that Snowball had never, as many of them had believed hitherto, received the order of Animal Hero First Class. This was merely a legend, which had been spread some time after the Battle of the Cowshed by Snowball himself. So far from being decorated, he had been censured for showing cowardice. So far from being decorated, he had been censured for showing cowardice in the battle. Once again, some of the animals heard this with a certain bewilderment, but Squealer was soon able to convince them that their memories had been at fault. In the autumn, by a tremendous, exhausting effort, for the harvest had to be gathered at almost the same time, the windmill was finished. The machinery had still to be installed, and Whymper was negotiating the purchase of it, but the structure was completed. In the teeth of every difficulty, in spite of the inexperience, of primitive implements, of bad luck, and of Snowball's treachery, the work had been finished punctually to the very day. Tired out but proud, the animals walked round and round their masterpiece, which appeared even more beautiful in their eyes than when it had been built the first time. Moreover, the walls were twice as thick as before. Nothing short of explosives would lay them down low this time. And when they thought of how they had labored, what discouragements they had overcome, and the enormous difference that would be made in their lives when the sails were turning and the dynamos running, when they thought of all this, their tiredness forsook them, and they gamboled around and round the windmill, gamboled round and round the windmill, uttering cries of triumph. Napoleon himself, attended by his dogs and his cockerel, came down to inspect the completed work. He personally congratulated the animals on their achievement and announced that the mill would be named Napoleon Mill. 2 days later, the animals were called together for a special meeting in the barn. They were struck dumb with surprise when Napoleon announced that he had sold the pile of timber to Frederick. Tomorrow, Frederick's wagons would arrive and begin carting it away. Throughout the whole period of his seeming friendship with Pilkington, Napoleon had really been in secret agreement with Frederick. All relations with Foxwood have been broken off. Insulting messages had been sent to Pilkington. The pigeons had been told to avoid Pinchfield Farm and to alter their slogan from death to Frederick to death to Pilkington. Look how easily the fucking public opinion can be swayed. These people are supposed to be loyal to the cause. Jerks. At the same time, Napoleon assured the animals that the stories of an impending attack on Animal Farm were completely untrue, and that the tales about Frederick's cruelty to his own animals had been greatly exaggerated. All these rumors had probably originated with Snowball and his agents. It now appeared that Snowball was not, after all, hiding on Pinchfield Farm, and in fact, had never been there in his life. He was living, in considerable luxury, so it was said, at Foxwood. And had in reality been a pensioner of Pilkington for years past. So it's so funny, they're just kind of being, isn't it weird how, if you play the parallel for modern times, think about all the back and forth contradicting information we're being fed on a day-to-day basis. All the articles that have so much untrue shit in them and greatly exaggerated points to have a headline, get click-throughs. But I mean, there's no way, especially for us the reader, right? Like, we don't really know what the truth is other than some shady shit's going on. We don't know who to trust. We don't know what's the truth. And that's exactly what's happening to these animals. They're being gaslit into believing that that the commandments weren't as they were. And now they're just like, oh yeah, actually, it's not fuck Frederick, it's fuck Pilkington, actually, yeah, sorry. My bad, it was all a secret though. Yep, oh yeah, those 3 hens, yeah, they were working for Snowball, yep, dead. Sorry, I don't know, it was weird. Anyway, so. Oh, where are we at? Here we go. So now Snowball's been a pensioner of Pilkington, so he's been receiving checks from fucking, anyway. The pigs were in ecstasies over Napoleon's cunning. By seeming to be friendly with Pilkington, he had forced Frederick to raise his price by 12 pounds. Yeah, see, pounds, British, told you. But the superior quality of Napoleon's mind, said Squealer, was shown in the fact that he trusted nobody, not even Frederick. Frederick had wanted to pay for the timber with something called a cheque, which, with a check with a QUE, by the way, CHEQUE, British as fuck, boy. Which it seemed was a piece of paper with a promise to pay written upon it, but Napoleon was too clever for him. He had demanded payment in real £5 notes, which were to be handed over which were to be handed over before the timber was removed. Already Frederick had paid up, and the sum he had paid was just enough to buy the machinery for the windmill. The machinery? I thought he was buying lumber. Okay. Okay, I see. So now that we got the money, we can buy the machinery. Gotcha. Meanwhile, the timber was being carted away at high speed. When it was all gone, another special meeting was held in the barn for the animals to inspect Frederick's banknotes. Smiling beatifically, beatifically? I don't know what the fuck is that word. Smiling beatifically and wearing both his decorations, Napoleon reposed on a bed of straw on the platform with the money at his side, neatly piled on a china dish from the farmhouse kitchen. The animals filed slowly past, and each gazed his fill, and Boxer put out his nose to sniff at the banknotes, and the flimsy white things stirred and rustled in his breath. And the flimsy white things, are £5 notes white? Weird. I need better money. 3 days later, there was a terrible hullabaloo. That's actually written in a book. Would you look at that? Hullabaloo. Whimper, his face deadly pale, came racing up the path on his bicycle, flung it down in the yard, and rushed straight into the farmhouse. The next moment, a choking roar of rage sounded from Napoleon's apartments. The news of what had happened sped round the farm like wildfire. The banknotes were forgeries. Frederick had got the timber for nothing. Napoleon called the animals together immediately, and in a terrible voice pronounced the death sentence upon Frederick. When captured, he said Frederick should be boiled alive. At the same time, he warned them that after this treacherous deed, the worst was to be expected. Frederick and his men might make their long expected attack at any moment. Sentinels were placed at all the approaches to the farm. What are sentinels? I mean, like in this context. Horses? I think that's a horse, maybe? Feels like a horse. Sentinels were placed at all the approaches to the farm. In addition, 4 pigeons were sent to Foxwood with a conciliatory message, which it was hoped might reestablish good relations with Pilkington. The very next morning, the attack came. The animals were at breakfast when the lookouts came racing in with the news that Frederick and his followers had already come through the 5-barred gate. What the fuck kind of lookouts are y'all? You let them get through the 5-barred gate, and that's when you decide to make sure you... bruh. Boldly enough, the animals sallied forth to meet them, but this time, they did not have the easy victory that they had had at the Battle of the Cowshed. There were 15 men, with half a dozen guns between them, and they opened fire as soon as they got within 50 yards. The animals could not face the terrible explosions, and I think my neighbor was listening to some loud ass music outside or something. That shit was weird. I could hear it through my headphones. Anyway, 15 men, half a dozen guns, and they opened fire as soon as they got within 50 yards. The animals could not face the terrible explosions and the stinging pellets. And in spite of the efforts Napoleon and Boxer to rally them, they were soon driven back. A number of them were already wounded. They took refuge in the farm buildings and peeped cautiously out from chinks and knot holes. Don't cancel. Like a chink in the armor. Okay? Took refuge in the farm building and peeped cautiously out from chinks and knot holes. The whole of the big pasture, including the windmill, was in the hands of the enemy. For the moment, even Napoleon seemed at a loss. He paced up and down without a word, his tail rigid and twitching. I've never seen a rigid pig's tail. Anyway. Wistful glances were sent in the direction of Foxwood. If Pilkington and his men would not help them, the day might yet be won. Huh. Interesting. So I wonder if the bridge has not been burnt. So now they're going to reach out to the other farm to ask for help. Interesting. Let's see what happens. That's gonna be fun. But at this moment, the 4 pigeons who had been sent out on the day before returned, one of them bearing a scrap of paper from Pilkington. Ribbity, oh yeah, ribbity, ribbity. On it was penciled the words, serves you right. See? Y'all worried about Snowball. You might be looking at Napoleon. Meanwhile, Frederick and his men had halted about the windmill. Uh-oh, big yawn energy. Didn't get a lot of sleep last night. Played a gig out in Alpharetta. Tired. Drunk and tired. I'm not drunk right now. I got drunk yesterday. I'm not hungover though, because I stay hydrated. I'm an adult. Anyway. Meanwhile, Frederick and his men had halted about the windmill. The animals watched them, and a murmur of dismay went round. 2 of the men had produced a crowbar and a sledgehammer. They were gonna knock the windmill down. Impossible! We have built the walls far too thick for that. They could not knock it down in a week. Courage, comrades! But Benjamin was watching the movements of the men intently. The 2 with the hammer and the crowbar were drilling a hole near the base of the windmill. Slowly, and with an air almost of amusement, Benjamin nodded his long muzzle. I thought so. Do you not see what they are doing? In another moment, they're going to pack blasting powder into that hole. Oh wait, that was Benjamin. That was not Napoleon. I thought so. Do you not see what they are doing? In another moment, they're going to pack blasting powder into that hole. Benjamin, I think, was like the old chill donkey, right? I don't know, bro. I should probably just stop doing voices all together. Oh, excuse me, but a lot of people seem to like them, so I don't know. Whatever. Who cares? Get on with the book, ugly. Terrified, the animals waited. It was impossible now to venture out of the shelter of the buildings. After a few minutes, the men were seen to be running in all directions. Then there was a deafening roar. The pigeons swirled into the air, and all the animals except Napoleon flung themselves flat on their bellies and hid their faces. When they got up again, a huge cloud of black smoke was hanging where the windmill had been. Slowly the breeze drifted it away. The windmill had ceased to exist. Damn. All that hard work for nothing. Does anybody want to place bets and see if this whole thing had been planned by Napoleon the whole time? At this sight, the animals' courage returned to them. The fear and despair they had felt a moment earlier were drowned in their rage against this vile, contemptible act. A mighty cry for vengeance went up, and without waiting for further orders, they charged forth in a body and made straight for the enemy. Dr. Goog, what do we got here? Hello, Dr. Goog. Hello, what can I do for you today? Damn it, it's like a fucking joke every time, man. Every time I fucking type in Dr. Goog. In a body. In a body. Like a grave. That was the first response. I don't even know if that's a thing. If it's not, it should be, because that's a fire song. In a body, all together as a group. Thanks, Dr. Goog. Facebook, no, every time. Nope. Fucking, I'm genius. Solved that crisis. That doesn't even happen anymore, because I'm smart. Oh, Charlie, you feel like you want to eat food now? Make sure you chew every piece. Make sure you crack every piece while I'm recording. Thanks, babe. They charged forth in a body and made straight for the enemy. This time they did not heed the cruel pellets that swept over them like hail. It was a savage, bitter battle. The men fired again and again, and when the animals got to close quarters, they lashed out with their sticks and heavy boots. A cow, 3 sheep, and 2 geese were killed, and nearly everyone was wounded. Even Napoleon, who was directing operations from the rear, big sneeze. Oh yeah. All right. Ooh, goosebumps. Oh, my nipples are hard. All right. Is that a superpower? Anybody else nipples get hard when you sneeze? That's uncomfortable. Ugh. Even Napoleon, who was directing operations from the rear, had the tip of his tail chipped by a pellet. But the men did not go unscathed either. 3 of them had their heads broken by blows from Boxer's hooves, and another was gored in the belly by a cow's horn. Another had his trousers nearly torn off by Jesse and Bluebell, and when the 9 dogs of Napoleon's own bodyguard, whom he had instructed to make a detour under cover of the hedge, suddenly appeared on the men's flank, baying ferociously, panic overtook them. That was one of the most complicated sentences of all time, especially trying to read out loud. And when the 9 dogs of Napoleon's own bodyguard, whom he had instructed to make a detour under cover of the hedge, suddenly appeared on the men's flank, baying ferociously, panic overtook them. Like, all that just to say, I mean, it was it was good. That was good imagery, I guess. I pictured it perfectly as I was reading it, so. Man, that sneeze got my sinuses messed up. They saw that they were in danger of being surrounded. Frederick shouted to his men to get out while the going was good, and the next moment, the cowardly enemy was running for dear life. The animals chased them right down to the bottom of the field and got in some last kicks at them as they forced their way through the thorn hedge. Through the thorn hedge, that triple threat right there. Their way through the thorn hedge too. There's a 4th one. Oh damn, they forced their way through the thorn hedge, but there's 5. God, them at they forced. Look at this. Look at all these thugs, bruh. Them as they forced their way through the thorn ledge. Bruh, mad thugs out here. What's up, thug? What's up, thug? They had won, but they were weary and bleeding. Slowly they began to limp back towards the farm. The sight of their dead comrades stretched upon the grass moved some of them to tears. And for a little while, they halted in the sorrowful silence at the place where the windmill had once stood. Yes, it was gone. Yes, it was gone. Almost the last trace of their labor was gone. Even the foundations were partially destroyed. And in rebuilding it, they could not this time, as before, make use of the fallen stones. This time the stones had vanished too. The force of the explosion had flung them to distances of hundreds of yards. It was as though the windmill had never been. As they approached the farm, Squealer, who had unaccountably been absent during the fighting, came skipping towards them, whisking his tail and beaming with satisfaction. And the animals heard, from the direction of the farm buildings, the solemn booming of a gun. What's that gun firing for? Said Boxer. To celebrate our victory. What victory? Said Boxer. His knees were bleeding. He had lost a shoe and split his hoof, and a dozen pellets had lodged themselves in his hind leg. What victory, comrade? Have we not driven the enemy off our soil, the sacred soil of Animal Farm? But they have destroyed the windmill, and we had worked hard on it for 2 years. What matter? We will build another windmill. We will build 6 windmills if we feel like it. You do not appreciate, comrade, the mighty thing that we have done. The enemy was in occupation of this very ground that we stand upon. And now, thanks to the leadership of Comrade Napoleon, we have won every inch of it back again. Then we have won back what we had before. That is our victory. They limped into the yard. The pellets under the skin of Boxer's legs smarted painfully. He saw ahead of them the heavy labor of rebuilding the windmill from the foundations, and already, in imagination, he braced himself for the task, but for the first time, it occurred to him that he was 11 years old, and that perhaps his great muscles were not quite what they had once been. But when the animals saw the green flag flying and heard the gun firing again, 7 times it was fired in all, and they heard the speech that Napoleon made, congratulating them on their conduct, It did seem to them, after all, that they had won a great victory. The animals slain in the battle were given a solemn funeral. Boxer and Clover pulled the wagon, which served as a hearse, and Napoleon himself walked at the head of the procession. Yeah, I would expect no less, honestly. Fucking Napoleon. Sorry for sniffling in y'all's ears. I don't think I'm gonna have time to edit them out either. I'm moving to a new state in the morning. Oh wait, by the time y'all hear this, I will have already moved. So, roll tide, I guess, because I live in Alabama now. Anyway. 2 whole days were given over to celebrations. There were songs, speeches, more firing of the gun, and a special gift of an apple was bestowed upon every animal, with 2 ounces of corn for each bird and 3 biscuits for each dog. It was announced that the battle would be called the Battle of the Windmill, and that Napoleon had created a new decoration, the Order of the Green Banner, which he had conferred upon himself. In the general rejoicings, the unfortunate affair of the banknotes was forgotten. Yeah, I actually forgot about the fake notes too. I forgot that happened. But what I did notice is that they're firing the gun a lot. So I wonder if that's symbolic, right? Because it used to mean something. It used to have a lot of symbolism behind it every time they shot the gun. So I wonder. I can't seem to think of anything off rip other than like it's gonna come to them shooting the farmers, right? Or somebody shooting Napoleon, right? I don't know. We'll see. Order the Green Banner. Fucking forgot about the fake banknotes. Yep. It was a few days later than this that the pigs came upon a case of whiskey in the cellars of the farmhouse. Nice. A whole case? Clean. Fuck yeah. It had been overlooked at the time when the house was first occupied. That night, there came from the farmhouse the sound of loud singing in which, to everyone's surprise, the strains of Beasts of England were mixed up. At about 9:30, Napoleon, wearing an old bowler hat of Mr. Jones's, ooh, you're not supposed to wear human clothes, ooh, was distinctly seen to emerge from the back door. Was seen to emerge from the back door, gallop rapidly round the yard, and disappear indoors again. But in the morning, a deep silence hung over the farmhouse. Not a pig appeared to be stirring. It was nearly 9 o'clock when Squealer made his appearance, walking slowly and dejectedly, his eyes dull, his tail hanging limply behind him, and with every appearance of being seriously ill. He called the animals together and told them that he had a terrible piece of news to impart. Comrade Napoleon was dying. A cry of lamentation went up. Straw was laid down outside the doors of the farmhouse, and the animals walked on tiptoe. With tears in their eyes, they asked one another what they should do if their leader was taken away from them. A rumor went round that Snowball had, after all, contrived to introduce poison to Napoleon's food. At 11 o'clock, Squealer came out to make another announcement. As his last act upon earth, Comrade Napoleon had pronounced a solemn decree. The drinking of alcohol was to be punished by death. So are we even sure that he just didn't get hella drunk? Yeah, so I mean, Napoleon clearly just got hella drunk and is hungover, right? Oh yeah, see. By the evening, however, Napoleon appeared to be somewhat better, and the following morning, Squealer was able to tell them that he was well on the way to recovery. By the evening of that day, Napoleon was back to work. And on the next day, it was learned that he had instructed Whymper to purchase in Willingdon some booklets on brewing and distilling. A week later, Napoleon gave orders that the small paddock behind the orchard, which it had been previously intended to set aside as a grazing ground for animals who were past work, was to be plowed up. It was given out that the pasture was exhausted and needed reseeding, but it soon became known that Napoleon intended to sow it with barley. So he told everybody that, oh no, it's fine, we're gonna reseed it. Making up excuses, man. Everything's just excuses with this guy. Can't stand him. About this time, there occurred a strange incident which hardly anyone was able to understand. One night at about 12 o'clock, there was a loud crash in the yard, and the animals rushed out of their stalls. It was a moonlit night. At the foot of the end wall of the big barn, where the 7 commandments were written, there lay a ladder broken in 2 pieces. Squealer, temporarily stunned, was sprawling beside it, and near at hand there lay a lantern, a paintbrush, and an overturned pot of white paint. The dogs immediately made a ring around Squealer and escorted him back to the farmhouse as soon as he was able to walk. None of the animals could form any idea as to what this meant, except old Benjamin, who nodded his muzzle with a knowing air and seemed to understand but would say nothing. But a few days later, Muriel, reading over the 7 commandments to herself, noticed that there was yet another of them which the animals had remembered wrong. They had thought the 5th commandment was, no animal shall drink alcohol, but there were 2 words that they had forgotten. Actually, the commandment read, no animal shall drink alcohol to excess. That was a long ass chapter. But yeah, I think we're gonna go ahead and cut it because we're only 10 minutes away from the hour, so there's no way we can burn through chapter 9 in 10 minutes. Definitely not. So, but man, that was a jam-packed chapter too. I mean, so much happened. I mean, the windmill falling down is absolutely tragic. I mean, it's symbolically to me is saying, you know, the things that whatever you want to call people like me, but people who don't necessarily look at socialism and communism as like evil forces at work or whatever. Like it's something to be looked at and considered and, you know, developed upon. It seems to me that the symbolism of losing the windmill is constantly getting setbacks, right? Like you saw the how much movement on the ground we had for like Bernie, right? For Bernie when he was running for president, I think 2020 maybe, whenever he ran, 2016, whatever. And the DNC wouldn't let him go. Like even though he was clearly the right choice and was going to be would have been the one to beat Trump for that election. How do you say, like Napoleon wouldn't let, you know, that slide. I mean, the humans rather. Sorry, not Napoleon. Sorry. The humans wouldn't let that slide. When they came, they stormed the farm and they're like, oh, the progress you guys are making, you've got a whole windmill built? Okay, check this out. Fraud. Got him. Now guess what? Guerrilla tactics. Bow, brat. So, I don't know. I'm not saying they're staging coups or anything. You know, I'm not saying none of this holds parallel to anything we've ever seen in reality time and time again, but pretty obvious you can't trust the government. And Napoleon's working for the government, as is Squealer. And if you think there aren't animals that are working for the man in our reality too, you're probably wrong. There definitely is. So, anyway, that was a fun episode. I'm glad y'all tuned in. Thanks for coming back. Like I said, we got a Facebook group. We got a Discord if you want to come chit chat about anything from video games to music to conspiracies, whatever you want to talk about. We got you. YouTube channel, follow, subscribe. Tell me which pig you like better. I don't know. Fuck, that's stupid. No one likes Napoleon. Anyway, love y'all always. Make sure you come back next week. Buy me a dress. Shave my butt crack. Okay, anyway. See y'all next week, man. Check your shelf, baby. Bow.